races me to the peak. Can we find any light without the music around? There will always be one love on life. Without no love, you got no regret. Without no revenge, you got no love. I'm a melody where I belong in this life. In this life. I'm not the girl that I used to be sometime. I'm more.
What is up, Level Up Nation, and welcome to the Monday, September 14th edition of LvLUp Live, your home for gaming and esports news, brought to you by OTN Media. My name is Fiasco, but we are friends, so you can call me John. It's all good. And the fine gentleman to my side over here, I believe it is screen left. I believe so, screen left. That is the king of the court side. That is my good friend Joey. What's up, buddy?
Dude, I'm doing well. I'm trying to figure out a few of my settings over here, but we're making it happen. We're making it roll. We are here. It's Monday. Once again, it seems to be our time of the week. Mondays and Thursdays, 8 p.m. for the podcast listeners. Yeah, John, I'm stoked. I think there's a lot of good news. I think there's going to be a lot more to come this week ahead as well.
All right, Nation, make sure you follow the show on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at LvLUp Live. That is at LvLUp Live. And while you're on Twitter, give Joey a follow. He's the king of the courtside. He's royalty. You have to follow him. Much like our friend Grant from Washington Justice, we're on a journey to get Joey verified on Twitter. So we're gonna work our best to get him that cool little check mark next to his name. You can find him at Courtside King. If you are watching here live on Twitch, what's up? It's that name right below his image box to my left. And make sure to follow me, Fiasco, on Twitter as well. That is right below the image box on the right side of your screen. So make sure to shoot us a follow as well as the show. And Nation, as always, if you wish to listen to the podcast version of the show, the LvLUp Podcast is available on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher. And since you're already listening to the podcast, why not leave us a really cool review, as reviews do go a long way, helping grow the show and reach new listeners. So when you do have a moment, we would appreciate you taking a small portion of your day and leaving us a really awesome review. Quasi-awesome reviews are accepted as well. All right, Joey, we had a great weekend. A lot of gaming news, a lot of esports happening over this past week. I have a feeling today's show is going to reflect that accurately. So what are we talking about on the Monday edition of LvLUp Live?
Yes, sir. We got quite a bit for you guys. We're talking some roster moves in League of Legends, Valorant, and CSGO. We're talking some new technology acquisitions with NVIDIA and AMD. We're talking a little bit about Apple because they are back in the news. This time, not as much about Epic, a little bit more about the Microsoft-Apple relationship, as well as that with Google Stadia and cloud game streaming. We're talking about a few game delays, some Call of Duty League changes, and much, much more.
All right. So before we can even jump into these delicious topics, Joey, of course, we have to talk about the drink of choice, our drinks that will be assisting us getting through this amazing episode. So, Joey, I need your beverage of choice, please.
Well, sir, I had a homemade margarita with dinner, but I do not have it anymore. I'm just drinking a LaCroix coconut sparkling water at the moment. So I'm a little lame. I had my alcohol before, and I did not have time to whip something else up before my wife started her little ladies' night thing downstairs. So I'm here with my water.
La Croix.
I know. Le Croix, Le
Le
Water,
Croix.
Le Agua.
Chat's calling it a little lame. I'm going to have to agree with them.
I know, Chad. I'm sorry. I'll have another margarita next week for you.
Not only did I release the Kraken, I have finished the Kraken. This bad boy is empty because its last remnants are right here in this beautiful container of rum and Coke Zero. So, Kraken, you were too easy to defeat, so I need to up my game. So I'm going to go for the larger bottle next time. Yeah, I'm an adult. I can do that, right? Right, Joey? Right?
Oh, absolutely, sir. Just like you take them down in Sea of Thieves, you take down the bottles right here as well.
Absolutely. Just Sea of Thieves. That's a podcast we could do all by itself, I swear. All right, Joey, we have our drinks, we have our topics. I don't want to waste any more time. Let's get right into gaming and esports news. Let's go.
Absolutely, sir. So one thing with Worlds every year, John, every team gets to take a sub. But before it was 2 subs, now it's 1 sub for League of Legends. This one in particular is one I want to hit on because I think it could be an implication for more to come. Fnatic has pulled Magi Felix from their Fnatic Rising Academy roster to have him join the main team as their sub for Worlds. So one of the big reasons to touch on this one in particular is when we look at Fnatic, they've gotten a lot of criticism on their mid laner and their support roles. Magi Felix is one of those players who mains mid and then also plays some support. He has like 4 accounts in the top 10 on the EU servers. He's incredibly talented when it comes to solo queue, and he's one of those players that has had stage fright in the past, but is also extremely talented. So this to me is a move to kind of help Fnatic shore up those positions, but I would not be surprised if we see him roll in and maybe play a game as well.
Yeah, he's not going to have to worry about stage fright too much. There's not going to be like 70,000 people packed in a stadium in China for Worlds, so that's something that hopefully he can overcome too. But no, I actually like the pickup. He's a very talented player, like you said. 4 accounts, ranks top, really high up there in the world. That's we have a member of the OTN community that has multiple accounts. And obviously working on different positions, different champions. So there's a lot of different reasons why you have multiple accounts. But the fact that all of his accounts are considered some of the best in the world, that says a lot about the talent of Felix. So I think it's a solid move for Fnatic going into Worlds. I think it's a great option for them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, guys, so the subs, one thing could be players stepping in here or there if there's an injury, if someone gets sick, et cetera, et cetera. But I think one other thing that not only this sub, but other subs bring to the field as well at Worlds is that extra opinion. When you're going through scrims, maybe there's something that one of the main team players doesn't see, or maybe they can find a different draft option that they're encountering in solo queue over in China or something like that. There's definitely options for them to come in as almost like analysts or assistant coaches in a sense to kind of give some extra feedback when it comes to the meta, when it comes to the way teams are adapting. So I really like this move. And I think a lot of the other subs that some of these other teams are bringing as well. This one in particular, I could see getting a starting spot though at some point. T1 has announced the departure of head coach Kim, who was previously signed until 2022. This one is no bueno, fam. So T1 being one of the most legendary organizations in all of League of Legends. They've won multiple world championships. They have Faker on their team, the best player of all time, arguably, for League of Legends. This was a star-studded roster, John. This was a roster where I think the backups could have taken down most of the NA and EU teams. It was just absolutely stacked from starting roster to backup roster to the coaching staff. Everyone was just very talented. They missed Worlds. They did not even qualify as a top 3 seed coming out of South Korea. So now I believe Kim retired, but I want to say there was probably a little bit of a push there as well, where it's kind of a you can retire here or we're going to push you out. I think resigned actually is what he did. But I have a feeling it was like a mutual decision to move on. So yeah, Coach Kim is out. Coach Kim, known for his incredible drafting, did not really show this year with T1, and now T1 finds himself short of Worlds and now short of a head coach as well.
Yeah, so you can look at this one of two ways. Like you said, Joey, this T1 roster is stacked. They could easily take down a lot of teams in the Western Hemisphere. Really, anywhere around the world, they would definitely be competitive in pretty much any League of Legends league there. So the way you can take it is either A, this roster severely underperformed, and you could possibly chalk that up to a lack of motivation from the coach, from the coaching staff, or just, something just didn't go right behind the scenes. Or you can chalk that up to the LCK being one of the toughest regions in the world. It may be a combination of both. T1 over the past couple of years really hasn't been played to the level that a lot of League of Legends fans, especially in the esports scene, has come to expect. Faker seems to age like fine wine. It feels like he just gets better every year, but can't really be said for the roster around him. They've had a lot of roster rotations as well. So that could definitely be playing a role as well. And then you add in the fact that the LCK is still one of the most competitive regions in the world, right up there with China. It's tough, but I think I think the mutual decision here between T1 and Coach Kim deciding to separate from each other is a smart move. It's going to bring some new blood into T1 and hopefully revitalize that historic organization.
Now, speaking of new coaching blood, potentially Cloud9 has also made a coaching move with their League of Legends roster. They have announced that head coach Reaper will not be returning next season. He was with the team for about 4 years, John. A lot of successful seasons there, in particular, really known for incredible drafting and for getting the best out of his players, minus a few hiccups here and there. He has said that he's interested in esports business jobs in addition to further head coaching inquiries as well, but has not found a new home just yet.
Just don't go to TSM. That's plain and simple. Reaper was great for Cloud9. When Cloud9 picked him up 4 years ago, it was a massive signing. Reaper has been making headway in the Asian scene for years, both as a player and as a coach. So, he was well-renowned. And when Cloud9 was able to pick him up, it was a big, big deal. It was really Cloud9 signaling, hey, we're serious about this. We want to compete not just in our region, but in the world scene as well. And Reaper really helped them, get on that way. Cloud9's still the most successful NA team ever in Worlds for League of Legends. Reaper also, not without controversy, was a part of the whole benching thing last year, where we saw, the starting rotation bench due to a lack of motivation and try to get a spark under them to actually play better. Some would say it worked. Some would say it didn't work. Some would say it drove some of the legendary players out of the Cloud9 roster. Nonetheless, Cloud9 performed incredibly well this year, except towards the end of Summer Split, where obviously they choked a little bit. It ended up costing them a spot in Worlds, but that's mainly because of the way the LCS decided to change their qualifying factors, which we won't even get into that because that is just an absolute clown fiesta. So Reaper leaving Cloud9 is going to hurt. Cloud9 is going to need another strong caliber coach to continue on that path and not fall back. But it seems like they parted with good blood between Jack from the owner of Cloud9, said some really nice things on social media. Reaper replied to it and everything. So it seems like there's good blood there. It seems like it was probably a mutual decision for both of them to part at the end of the day.
Yeah, honestly, I could see this more being even on Reaper's side than anything. I think Cloud9 probably would have given it another chance after a really successful spring split and really not a bad summer until the end. I think the big thing here is Reaper's been with the organization for 4 years. 4 years is a very long time in esports, and I think it's one of those things where he's like, okay, I kind of want to pursue something else. And he keeps pushing that he's interested in head coaching, but he's very interested in other positions as well. I could see him becoming like a director of a team or like moving into a different I guess more management style role, like more head on management, where he's looking at a bigger profile, maybe overtaking a few different teams, or maybe he's running the academy team and the main team from a higher level. I just feel like he's extremely talented. He knows the game extremely well, and he's worked with one of the best esports organizations out there. in Cloud9. So he comes in with a very strong resume, and I think that could end up working very well with many different organizations. And he just wants to try something out, get a new feel for something different. He still likes Cloud9, as you said. He's very respectful, let's say, in the post. It doesn't seem like he's coming out negative in any way. He's having good conversations on Twitter. Again, it's Twitter. You can take it as you want. But at the same point, he doesn't really strike me as a guy that's going to hold kind of vengeance either. Moving from League of Legends to a few shooter roster moves and then into some partnerships and investments, Valorant. Envy has added Food to their Valorant roster. This one in particular is interesting, not just because it's an acquisition, but because Food was previously on T1's roster as of May 2020. So he was with them for pretty much the whole summer, May through the early September range. This to me is kind of a blockbuster move in the sense that T1 is not a terrible team. They've done successfully in quite a few tournaments. They've made some nice runs in Valorant, now ending up changing the roster up a bit, and Envy gets a pretty solid veteran here in Food.
Yeah, it's a really good pickup. If you're an Envy fan, you have to be happy about it. Like you said, Joey, Food coming over from T1, like you said, T1's roster. I mean, they weren't a joke. They were very competitive in a lot of the competitions they were in. So Food coming over to Envy, that's a huge spark. That's that huge veteran leadership that a lot of teams are looking for. That's a massive signing for Envy, and it's definitely something to pay attention in the Valorant scene going forward.
And last but not least, moving from Food to Taco here, MIBR has dropped Taco, Fur, and Dead. John, Dead we talked about last week or the week before. He was one of the coaches involved in the scandal with that map camera glitch. I believe he was the coach that used it for one round in one matchup or something. So it was the most minimal of all the people that ended up using that glitch. At the same point, MIBR has decided they're going to drop both those players as well as the head coach. And since then, as of this morning, the in-game leader and Captain Fallen has stepped down as well. That is leaving MIBR with no coach, missing 3 players, leaving them with 2 players active on the roster, and they have their next match currently set for October 22nd with the NA leg of Blast Premier. I'm curious how this goes. This is a legendary organization. Well, a legendary roster. It was Luminosity for a while. It was very successful. Then MIBR picked them up. They saw some success here and there, but other teams like Astralis, Navi, Fnatic, a number of other teams have come out and beat them in many events. But they still have these amazing players, these players that are legendary in many people's eyes, very well known throughout the CSGO scene. Now 3 of them are available and a coach is available. And yes, he cannot coach for, I think, like 6 months or something due to that one glitch that he ended up using on one map. Again, I think the weight of penalties might have needed to be reassessed in the way some of these played out. But regardless, a lot of players off this roster and a lot of big moves. Do you see them filling this roster before October 22nd? Or do you see them maybe trying to rethink their investment into this scene in general?
I think they're going to stay in the scene. I think the bigger question isn't if they will fill the roster. It'll be with what kind of players will they fill the roster with. By October 22nd, that's going to be very difficult to put together a world-class roster, an elite roster that's going to compete. I have no doubt they'll put a roster together. They may look at going young. They may look at bringing up-and-coming talent and see how they perform. I have a feeling it's going to be a roller coaster or a carousel, if you will, of roster moves going forward to try to find that right chemistry. I do think they'll have a roster for the event, but I would question the skill of that roster, mainly because you have to ask yourself, how much money are you willing to throw out there trying to rebuild this roster when you don't even have a coaching staff, when you're essentially you're in rebuild mode. If there's ever an equivalent of rebuild in esports, this is it, where you don't have any coaches. You essentially have 2 players on the roster. And, when it comes down to rosters, it comes down to chemistry. Are they going to be able to play together? Are their play styles going to mesh with the new players? And who knows, maybe these 2 players might not stick around. They may move on as well. So there's a lot of questions. I do think they'll have a roster. I think the bigger question is going to come down to the quality of that roster and will they be able to compete? And by October 22nd, I'm going to go ahead and say that they'll have a roster, but I don't think they're going to compete very well.
I think this is going to end up being a much bigger story than it is. I think they're going to field the roster, like you said. I think it'll be young players, potentially rookies, potentially cheaper players that they could just find to field this roster and not breach any kind of contract with Blast. At the same point, this is an organization that's really struggling. MIBR is under the Immortals brand. Immortals just got absolutely demolished in League of Legends in North America. Immortals continues to lose on many different levels in many different scenes. It just feels like the organization as a whole cannot really click right now. And I think bigger moves are going to have to come where they eventually start either cutting themselves out of scenes or investing heavily in other scenes and allowing others to suffer as a result of it. I think this is going to be that first decision. Do we fully invest into the CSGO scene, or do we look more at our League of Legends spot and trying to shore that up because we made a complete mess of it this past season? To me, if I'm choosing the scene, I think I put more money into League of Legends with it being franchised. At the same point, there is some franchising and stuff that goes on with CSGO leagues nowadays as well. But between the two, if I have to choose one, I think I choose League of Legends. Do I think Immortals makes that same decision? I think they probably would after having so much trouble getting into the league to begin with. But this is going to be a big decision because they are suffering on a lot of different fronts. And this is just another big mess coming out from them as well.
Yeah, then when you add in the fact that Immortals also owns the LA Valiant of Overwatch League, another league that's not exactly cheap and another league that, they're kind of mid-pack in. So it's going to be interesting to see how they allocate that money going forward. I think that's a very good point you bring up, Joey.
That we will have to wait and see. But one thing we don't have to wait and see, John, is NVIDIA, because they have plenty of money right now. They're going to give us graphics cards for cheaper, and they're also going to go out there and acquire ARM for $40 billion. This is a huge, huge tech move right here. Not only is the stock market going to reflect it probably, it probably already is. I haven't really looked at NVIDIA because it's priced quite high.
Yeah.
But ARM is a British semiconductor business. For those of you who don't know, they also do some software design. They're currently owned by Japanese SoftBank Group. SoftBank's one of those firms that invests into tons and tons of different companies. Now NVIDIA has agreed to make the sale, though, $40 billion. So what does this do for NVIDIA? NVIDIA already being one of the most popular graphic chip processors out there, absolutely dominating that industry right up there. AMD starting to challenge them a bit, but really not enough to scratch on NVIDIA's business just yet. Now they're coming out with ARM. This is going to give them power to fight against AMD, not only on the graphics card front, but on the processing front. And they can go ahead and bring Intel into the mix as well. Intel already suffering from hits from AMD. NVIDIA jumping right in there as well as we get closer to that AI next generation technology.
Yeah, and so if you as a consumer are trying to sit here and be like, okay, what does this exactly mean? A $40 billion acquisition for NVIDIA. Okay, cool. I understand AMD, NVIDIA, they make graphics cards. Okay, I get that. But what does this mean for me as a consumer? I feel like, Joey, you hit on it. The big thing here really comes down to the whole competition with Intel. And you already touched on it. AMD is challenging Intel. Intel became very complacent, and AMD came out of nowhere and gaveth the backhandeth to Intel in this past generation with their processor chip. If NVIDIA makes this jump into processors, that's going to be a third competitor in that market. For you as a consumer, this is going to drive down those prices. It's going to be absolutely fantastic because right now, the average i7 processor unlocked is still going to cost you right around $400-500. You go for an i9, you're going to go for those elite processors. You're looking at close to $900, if not over $1,000 for those processors. You bring in AMD. AMD is pretty much matching what Intel's putting out there for about $200 to $300 less than what Intel is charging. And in most fronts, when it comes to multitasking, AMD is kicking Intel's butt. Now you add NVIDIA in there, taking on AMD and Intel. AMD still technically playing catch up to Intel, but NVIDIA coming in with a very strong foundation and a large fan base of that company. They move into that processor market and really challenge AMD and Intel. This is going to be great for pricing for PC gamers going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is going to be a giant deal. Like we already saw with NVIDIA with their graphics card pricing, now AMD is going to have some kind of response to that. AMD really being, I don't want to say that cheaper option in quality, but that cheaper option as far as value goes. They're really pricing their stuff competitively with what NVIDIA was. Now NVIDIA coming out with these cheaper prices, but not really lacking much in power. So AMD is really going to have to come out and respond to that either through price or through increased power or some kind of answer to the big mega company that NVIDIA is when it comes to graphics units. Now with ARM coming in, again, that becomes the same kind of thing in chips where Intel and AMD both have to find some kind of response. NVIDIA really controlling that market in a sense at the moment. But AMD has shot back a little bit. AMD has announced a first look at the design of their new Radeon RX 6000 series with a brand new cooler design. Not cooler as in, yo, that's awesome. Cooler as in a nice little air cooler going on there. With the ability to check out the new design in a creative island on Fortnite, John. So you can just go ahead and drop in from the battle bus onto this new little creative island and check out AMD's new cooler design on their Radeon RX 6000 if you wanted Fortnite.
I hate the fact we're using Fortnite for product launches, because I'm sorry, little 8-year-old Timmy is not going to convince mom and dad to drop $300-400 on a graphics card, but you could swindle mom and dad into $4.99 for V-Bucks. Cool, awesome, great, good for Fortnite. I don't care. The graphics card, cool, it looks awesome. It's got a traditional radiator design on the side versus like the piping, if you will, that you see on NVIDIA or the third-party NVIDIA cards, where it looks a little more industrial, a little bit more robotic. This has almost like an automobile feel, like imagine the front of your car, like that grate that's on the side of the card. So, I mean, it looks kind of cool. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you don't really look at a card for the looks, unless you're trying to match your RGBs with it. But you're looking at the specs. You're looking at how does this compare with the RTX 30 series that NVIDIA launched out there. Like Joey said, the pricing for the NVIDIA RTX 30 cards is incredibly reasonable for a ton of power. AMD is going to have to respond to that. And so far, the RX 6000 series looks good. So far, so good. Still waiting for a little more of the specs to come out there. But there's a good chance with how Radeon's been and AMD's been developing the Radeon card that this could be a great alternative to a budget-friendly PC build that will still give you a really, really good product for a gaming PC going forward. But I think with just how much power the NVIDIA RTX cards are going to be offering, it's almost going to be worth that extra money to go to NVIDIA. Just my personal opinion on that one. But so far, so good. I like what AMD's been doing with their graphics cards. I think it's a great alternative option for gamers out there looking to build a PC or advancing or improving their PC, should I say. So I think it's decent so far, but I'll wait to see the specs come out on it.
Absolutely. So yeah, we'll have to see how it all goes. I'm with you, John. I don't think that's going to really be your market in a sense. Like these kids that are playing Fortnite, or the average age of people playing Fortnite, are probably not going to be the ones out there purchasing these graphic cards for themselves. At the same point, I do like the unique idea of it. And I think one of the things that might come out of it is people making YouTube videos. So you might end up with people going in and like making YouTube videos of it. And maybe they're kids, maybe they're more people on a professional level, like some editor of a magazine or a journalist that works in gaming. Maybe they go in up doing some kind of YouTube video where they look at the graphics card and they dive into its design. I don't know how much testing you can really necessarily do in Fortnite, but you can at least talk about the design. You can look at the different intricacies of that design. So I think that's some of the stuff we could see come out of it. And again, Fortnite is becoming more than a game. It's becoming a social experience, whether it be concerts in game, whether it be events, whether it be making fun of Apple's old commercials. It's become an experience for a lot of different people. And I think this is one way to expand that experience to maybe something a little bit more product related, like we've seen with some movies and music in the past. Our next topic is Apple, John. Let's take a bite out of this one. We continue to talk about Apple. It's usually for different reasons. It's usually the Apple epic billion-dollar fight that goes on here and there. We had round 4 this past episode. Now we are back, but this time with the Microsoft and Google spin on cloud gaming. To break a little bit of this down, so John and I talked about this a couple weeks ago. We brought up a lot of these details already. Now it's been officially put into writing by Apple and then later responded to by Microsoft in writing. To break down the major points, though, Apple is still looking to take a 30% cut on subscriptions via iOS, but subscribing via PC or console will allow access to the iOS app still. So one of the big things that came up before was they said, hey, we're not going to allow cloud gaming because of all these things, but it was never in writing. Now they've come out and said, we're still going to take this 30% cut. We're going to allow people to subscribe via your PC or console, though. In this case, let's say xCloud with Google Stadia. These are two things that are okay. So they're saying you don't have to subscribe through Apple, which is a big win for the cloud gaming companies. But at the same point, it can be subscribed through for Apple for 30%. I think Microsoft and Google are okay with that. They're not happy about 30%, but I think it's doable. This is where the biggest issue comes in. Apple is requiring that each game have its own individual listing that can be purchased or downloaded separately from the subscription service. So let's say John gets xCloud. It has 150 games to it, and he wants to play Gears of War. Microsoft has to make a Gears of War app, and then they have to make a Sea of Thieves app, and then they have to make a Halo app, and they have to have an app for every single game on the service that's being offered. Now, the app itself does not necessarily have to be a fully playable game. It at least has to be a demo that includes 1 to 2 levels in Apple's writing. Again, that's a lot of work. So we're talking not only the cloud app itself, but every single game having to have its own app and be reviewed separately as well. This is a big issue to me, and I just want to get your thoughts on this before we jump into Microsoft's response, John. But overall, it seems like a giant hassle for cloud gaming companies, and I don't think it would be worth it for them.
Yeah, and I think this is, this is Apple really trying to protect their Apple Arcade experience. That's just what it feels like to me. Is they're trying to push, that. You obviously don't want to lose subscribers on your own platform to someone that you see as a competitor, whether it's Microsoft, whether it's Epic, whether it's any other place. You want to have control over your own market. Obviously, you want people to buy your product. They're already in your ecosystem. You want them to spend more money in your ecosystem. I get it. I do agree with you, Joey. This is not good for developers. It is a lot of work. It's a lot of additional work that is going to result in additional man hours, additional time. Over time, it's going to cost more money to make these demo versions, to have that available on the App Store, to justify it being included in this cloud gaming subscription. Now, I'm okay with Apple taking the 30%, but still offering the other way of signing up to it on the PC. That's what they do with Amazon when it comes to ebooks. Is you can't buy ebooks on through the Kindle app on iOS. You have to go through Amazon. That way Amazon gets the full cut. That also comes down to the fact that Apple has their own app that sells books as well. So that part I'm fine with. I think that's a fair concession that, okay, you can either stay within the ecosystem of Apple to sign up for it, or you can go on your PC and sign up for it and you still get full access. I'm fine with that. I don't like what feels like is anti-consumerism when it comes to forcing a demo out there. I do think demos have a place, but when it comes to cloud gaming, that's the beauty, is you pay that subscription. The demo is the full game. No one's going to play through a full game if after 1 or 2 levels they don't like it, and they can move on to the next game. So I actually don't like this. I think Apple is. I can see where Apple's coming from, trying to protect Apple Arcade, but I feel like at the end of the day, when even EA Sports, when EA in general is even being more friendly to gamers, this is a really bad look from Apple.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you guys know my stance. I'm definitely for the xCloud Stadia stance. Like you said, John, I think 30% to me is a little bit high. But at the same point, it's almost an industry standard to a lot of these different stores. If you look at Google Play, if you look at Apple, this is something pretty common there. You look at Xbox and PlayStation, 30% is the standard for consoles as well. So it's not one of those crazy numbers out there. I think with the quality that we're seeing come in from Microsoft and Google and the number of games, 30% seems a little excessive. Like, I think 30% on a game purchase up front, then yes, I like it. But if you're looking at every single microtransaction within every single one of those games, I think it becomes a little bit excessive just because of the high number of people that could be buying from that way, which for Apple, I think is great. And I don't know if this is a standing point for Microsoft either. We did a little poll, by the way. Congrats on our first Twitter poll, or Twitch poll, excuse me. Whose side are you on when it comes to cloud gaming? Chat overwhelmingly voted for Microsoft and Google on that one. Apple receiving no votes, actually. Yeah, I think this is one of the big things, though. Like, Apple, when you look at them, the 30% does not get me as much as the rest. The fact that they're saying Microsoft and Google, you have to create an individual app for every single one of these games. And again, I just don't know the numbers on Stadia as well as I do xCloud. So with xCloud, that's 200 games. It's like 150 coming from the Microsoft side, and then whatever EA Play brings in, which is somewhere around 50 to 75 more. That is a lot of games to design apps for. And it's not all going to fall on Microsoft either. They're going to have to reach out to developers to have them develop apps for this as well. So then it becomes, okay, you're now taxing developers, and Microsoft's having to ask for this, which in turn is going to be some kind of more money traded somewhere, but Apple still gets their 30% cut on everything. It just feels a little ridiculous, especially when we look at how other entertainment qualities are looked at. Like one in particular, Movies, you look at Netflix, you look at Amazon Prime Video, and then you look at music. There's all the different music apps out there like Spotify and Apple Music. We won't really count. SoundCloud we'll go with as another example. It's one of those things. And I think someone in chat brought it up at one point, John, and you can elaborate more. It's because video games can be tampered with in a sense, or the code is somewhat changed in the app compared to actually just viewing material. And I think I get that argument, but at the same point, I don't feel like it's enough of an argument to really counteract what Xbox and Google are trying to do here.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an interesting take, in comparison, when you have a streaming service like Netflix, Spotify, where it's like, yeah, you're streaming content, but all your interaction is play, pause, skip, rewind, so on and so forth. When it comes to actual games being manipulated based upon player input, I don't know. Like, I get the argument. I understand where the argument comes from. I guess the only thing that it just, I don't know. Like, I really don't see that being a good argument. Like, I get it. I don't think it's a good argument, though. I feel like Apple has the means and has the ability to just open this up. And, this would be another great thing for Apple consumers to be like, hey, look, yeah, now I don't have to go get a Microsoft tablet or a Microsoft phone or a Microsoft anything. I can do everything right here in the ecosystem I've already bought into, that is iOS and Apple. That's, to me, that's not just smart for the consumer, it's smart for the business, because, this is a chance that you can start pulling away, from Microsoft. When you have a hard-nosed stance like this, you're almost forcing people to make that decision. What do you value more, your iPhone or your video games? Your mobile games, your streaming, your cloud services, so it puts the consumer in a position that they have to make up their mind. And in this position, Apple's kind of gambling on the fact that Apple users are already bought into their ecosystem, and they're not going to fork over the money that it would take to switch ecosystems to allow, a console or a mobile device to gain access to that market. They don't think people would be willing to drop a new $200, $300, $400, $500, $600 to find a device to get into that new ecosystem. And I think that's a bad take from Apple. If that really is their thinking, is that the consumer won't do that, they're wrong. Ask PlayStation. When PlayStation had the massive issues with PlayStation Network, there were a ton of PlayStation people that swapped over to Xbox because it was down for over 2 months, swapped over to Xbox, and a lot of them did not come back. I even admit that when it was down, I even jumped over to Xbox. I believe that was during the 360 era. I jumped over to Xbox, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it for the 2 months, but eventually I ended up coming back to PlayStation. Now, you don't want to put the consumer in that decision, because they may not come back if they jump from your ecosystem. And that's essentially what Apple's doing, is forcing the consumer to make that decision. And they're probably going to lose if that consumer decides to jump.
Yeah, I think that's one of the big things. Like, I'm an iPhone user. I'm pissed at this move by Apple. Do I think it's going to be a move to make me switch over to Android right now? I don't. As cloud gaming continues to grow, as this catalog gets bigger and bigger, as accessories become more and more prominent, and the internet continues to increase in speed as far as we move to the 5G, I think this becomes something that becomes more and more of a factor for people. People with commutes on the bus, on the metro, maybe they want to play games. Maybe they have a Nintendo Switch to do that. Maybe they don't. Maybe they want to look into something more, and this becomes one of those options. Now, with Google Stadia and Microsoft's xCloud blocked here, I think people start looking, well, hey, it's about that time I need to upgrade. Do I look at that new iPhone because I'm used to the Apple ecosystem? I like the new features that are being added. Or do I look to Android that's a little bit more open with some of these things like cloud gaming, for example? And I think that becomes more and more of an argument as we see people look for those upgrades. At this point, I don't think it's enough to get many people to move. I don't think cloud gaming is big enough, as it's kind of just releasing. And Google already has so many issues with it. If we look at the latency, if we look at the different feedback from it so far. Now, xCloud is getting a ton of positive feedback, but it's still in beta. It's not even publicly released until tomorrow. So I think this is one of those things that, as we see it continue to develop, if it comes out really positively and people eventually get to the point where they need to upgrade, maybe that's when we see some people switching over. But for now, I don't really think Apple takes too much of a hit from this move at the moment. We do have Microsoft's response, though, as well. I have to cough quick. Microsoft's response. This is quoted, by the way, this remains a bad experience for customers. Gamers want to jump directly into a game from their curated catalog within one app, just like they do with movies or songs, and not be forced to download over 100 apps to play individual games from the cloud. Bracket here, friends. That is a little bit of an over-exaggeration. Yes, there are 100 plus games on there, but someone who wants to just play one game is not going to download 100 apps. That's a little crazy. End bracket. The rest of the quote. We're committed to putting gamers at the center of everything we do, and providing a great experience is the core to that mission. Okay, I get this. I think this is a great response from Microsoft. I think it pokes back at exactly what needs to be poked back at. I think they exaggerate a little bit with the number of apps that would be downloaded here. But overall, I think they're just driving home the point that it seems excessive and crazy for a company that's looking to provide a service for fans to have to go up and beyond to recreate that material almost a second or third time.
You know, I'm going to really double down on this being a very bad example of what people will have to do. Downloading over 100 separate apps. I hate to tell you this, but I'm going to look on my phone real quick. Let's see here. I have close to 80 different apps downloaded. That doesn't bother me. Downloading apps does not bother me. Downloading multiple game apps does not bother me. Yes, it is nice to go onto Netflix and just browse and peruse and just play something on my phone while I'm at the gym. Yes, same thing with Spotify. But at the end of the day, that's not something that's going to make or break it for me, downloading multiple apps to access games or games I want to play. So I don't know. To me, I feel like you said, Joey, it's a little dramatic. I get where they're going from, but like that alone, I feel like isn't the breaking point. I feel like it's the fact that it remains an option on almost every platform except for Apple, and Apple's doing everything they possibly can to make this harder for the consumer, harder for the gamer, harder for Microsoft to get their product onto a market that they recognize has the ability to help grow their cloud gaming system and reach a ton of users. I think that's what they need to double down on, is the fact that it's saying, hey, look, we recognize that Apple has a massive population. Like, we want to be able to bring our products to the Apple community, to the Apple ecosystem, without having to force them to upgrade to a larger phone for storage, without having to force them to possibly look outside of the Apple ecosystem. We want to do this for the gamer. That, I feel like that's the take they need to take, not the, they're gonna have to download over 100 apps. To me, I'm sorry, like, Joey, like, put yourself in high school, Joey. Downloading apps, not a problem. That was like, I downloaded like 8 apps every single day. It didn't matter. So, you know, I just feel like that's a very weak take. But I do think the better take would be playing to the consumer and the ease of it, and recognizing Apple's place in the market as a place that Microsoft wants to be, and not just automatically be all doom and gloom with downloading 100 apps.
You and I are very different. I've
Yes.
actually left companies and things before that have had more than 2 apps. Like ecosystem. So, for example, Yahoo Fantasy. Yahoo Fantasy at one point broke all of their fantasy sports into separate apps. They had a fantasy football app, a fantasy baseball app, a fantasy hockey app, and I switched because of that. I thought it was insane for me to have 9 different fantasy apps to keep up with all these different sports. It was absolutely obnoxious. Again, it's a weird comparison because I'm comparing fantasy sports versus gaming, and you can argue back and forth because people do have individual gaming apps on there, regardless of what game you end up playing. So it's a little bit funky, but at the same point, I think this would be an issue for me. My bigger issue is that Microsoft is saying it's going to be 100 apps. There is no way anyone is downloading 100 gaming apps at once to play a game. And it's just crazy to me. Like, I'm thinking of Game Pass on PC. I have, I think, like 15 games downloaded right now, which is a lot, but at the same point, I can access them when I want. I don't see myself doing that with a mobile platform, either a tablet or a mobile phone. That seems crazy excessive to me to do that and bounce back and forth like that. But maybe that's just me. On the same side, I think they need to hit more on the fact that Apple wants them to create 100 apps. The creation of 100 apps is a lot of people's time. I mean, we're talking payment upon payment to developers, to people at Microsoft, to people at Google. I mean, that is a lot of time invested to make these little 1 to 2 level demo apps that have to be out there, or fully individual games. I mean, that's just craziness to me. Yeah, I feel like I could go on and on about this. So we're just going to stop here at the moment. But yeah, we'll see what happens next. Apple now officially putting this into writing. Microsoft officially putting their response into writing. This all happened, I believe, it was on Friday. So still a little bit of room to move. Now that we're into another week, we'll see if anything goes back and forth between the two. I think Apple is making these moves not because they necessarily want the cloud gaming platforms there, but because they're under pressure and scrutiny from the EU right now about being fair when it comes to cloud gaming. I think this is one of the things that as the EU continues to push on them, we're going to see more and more changes. I don't think it's going to be perfect for either side, but I would not be surprised if we eventually get xCloud and Stadia coming to Apple, maybe sometime in 2021. The Call of Duty League, ladies and gentlemen, the Call of Duty League had a successful first year. Not the greatest of years for esports. It's not League of Legends, but at the same point, it did show good growth in its first year. It is now announced that it'll be moving its pro team competition to PC. So it's going to be played on PC, no longer played on console, but you will still be required to play on a controller. So moving to PC, not mouse and keyboard, but you are still moving to a controller. I'm curious what the details are on this, because to my knowledge, Sony still owns the rights to have the PlayStation as like the presenting sponsor and console for the Call of Duty League. So I'm not sure if they paid out that contract or if it is going to have to be PlayStation controllers. It's a little kind of a gray area right now. The official statement said all matches will be played on PC and all pro players must use a league-approved controller of their choice. I don't know if that means a league-approved PlayStation controller where they can use a SCUF Gaming or a default PlayStation, or if that means it's just a controller, either Xbox or PlayStation, that is looked over and examined for any kind of cheats or anything like that. They kind of left it as a gray area for now.
Yeah, and, I want more leagues to do this. The NBA 2K League does this. They have Alienware computers that they run their games on, and you're allowed to play with the controller that you want. If you're an Xbox player, you can play with an Xbox controller. If you're a PlayStation player, you can play with a PlayStation controller. Now, the fun thing is that you have to submit 5 controllers of your choice to the league, and then the league holds on to them for you to play, which is a little extreme, but that's neither here nor there. But I actually like this move from Call of Duty. I am curious, like you, Joey, if they bought Sony out from the presenting console for PlayStation being that presenting console for the Call of Duty League, or is this just going to be a switch to you still have to play with a PlayStation controller? I don't think there's anything wrong with being a presenting partner for Sony and the PlayStation 5. Like, you can still be the official console. But I feel like for the sake of competition and for the sake of quality, why not offer a PlayStation controller and an Xbox controller or a third-party modified controller like a scuffed controller? That at the end of the day, that's what viewers want. That's what fans want, is they want the best version of that competition they possibly can. If I want to play Rocket League to my best ability, I play on a PlayStation controller. If I try on an Xbox controller for some reason, just that awkwardness of the thumbsticks there just throws me off. So I would want to play on a PlayStation controller. That's just me. That's what I'm used to. So I feel like having that option would be better for the league and better for the competition and ultimately better for the fan.
Yeah, I think it's just one of those things that could get awkward. So let's say PlayStation's still that presenting sponsor, and then they end up doing a camera angle of the winning team, and you see everyone on that team holding an Xbox controller. Then it becomes a little awkward for PlayStation as a presenting sponsor. Yes, they still get their name out there. Yes, viewers are still seeing their logo tons of times, but they're also seeing the competition's controller out there as well. I think that's where it could get hairy if there is some kind of partnership still going on here between the two. At the same point, I think this is a big move for the scene. Now, like you said, John, this is the best of the best. This is not just the people who are better at PlayStation competing. This is if you're better at PlayStation, if you're better at Xbox, the controller is going to be the same. We're moving you all to console or to PC where you can play with either controller. I think that is a big, big win overall, because now you have that competition coming from both sides and the elite competition from both sides competing on the same level, on that same platform. Now, one of the interesting sides with this, and I guess we can count this as a negative, is most of the audience for Call of Duty comes from consoles. When you look at a lot of the player bases, I think it's like top 5 on both Xbox and PlayStation. They're both Call of Duty. when you look at PC, I think PC pulls in a fair number of Call of Duty players, but they're also competing with a ton of other games that are also available on PC. Now, that to me is the bigger issue here. And I don't necessarily think it's an issue. I think it's just going to be a question that fans bring up. A lot of people are like console elitists in that sense. Why do people on PC get to play my games? PlayStation fans were saying that about their single player experiences. Then you've had Xbox guys come out as well. Like Xbox is the best platform for multiplayer. And now this game is moving from an Xbox and a PlayStation to being PC as that main competitive console or that platform in a sense. So I think one of the things that's going to come up here is arguments on both those sides, as well as now that accessibility for everyone to really compete on the same level. To me, I think this is a positive overall, which we did put another poll in chat. I think this is a good move. I don't necessarily, it's definitely not a bad move in my opinion. I don't know if it's a great move yet, depending on how the console audience ends up reacting. At the same point, regardless of where the competitive play is being done, I have a feeling most people will still purchase this game on console, and I really don't see this impacting sales. So I think it's going to be a win-win all around.
Yeah, like I said, I really like this move. So I'm definitely more on the great move side of this argument. I just feel like it's going to be a better overall experience, not just for the players, but for the viewers also moving it to PC. You're not going to be restricted to a console and its technology again, when this next gen console releases within a year, guaranteed everything in that console from a technology standpoint will be obsolete. That's just how technology works. It moves that fast. Consoles lock you into that. For PCs, it can constantly evolve. You can get the best of the graphics card, the best of the processor. You can make it run better than a console could in the next 5 years. I feel like overall, just the overall quality of life for this league, the players and viewers will jump tremendously with a move to PC.
Yeah, I could not agree more. I really think the biggest thing for me is that competition is all on the same level. Like, I remember when I was playing COD competitively, every argument was like, well, can you beat these PS5 guys? Can those PS5 guys beat those, or not PS5, but PlayStation, I guess it was 3 at that point. Just arguments like, well, is the best Xbox guy the best, or is the best PlayStation guy the best, or whatever. I ended up beating some players on PlayStation, by the way, not even using that controller. So that's here nor there. But regardless, I think this is big because now everyone can have this little, I'm going to 1v1 you, bro, arguments on the same platform. No more, well, this controller I'm better at, this controller I'm worse at. You're purely playing on the same thing with whatever controller you want, potentially, depending on how the league ends up playing this PlayStation deal. I think this is a big, big move because of that, though. Couple other things. Kenna, Bridge of Spirits. Sean, I'm actually really excited for this game. It kind of looks like a Legend of Zelda game. It's going to come to PlayStation and PC first. I believe it's a console launch exclusive for PS5, and then it'll eventually be coming to Xbox platforms as well, and I think Nintendo Switch too. It has been delayed, though. It's delayed to Q1 2021. It was supposed to be a launch date or a launch game for PlayStation 5 and PC. No longer. It's going to be bumped back. If I had to guess, John, we're probably looking around March 2021 for this one. But it is one of those games that looks kind of cool and is a nice like adventure style game that will be coming out here in 2021.
Chat's talking about your subtle flex that you just had there.
I know. That was one of the big things that drove me crazy. Like, oh, you're just good because you're on that platform, whatever. And then I smack you with your own controller.
Ooh.
Take that, son.
Oh my.
Yeah, I get a little competitive here and there. Like it's why we run Reapers and Sea of Thieves, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Come at us.
A couple other announcements upcoming for this week. Again, we've talked about it a lot today. Microsoft's cloud gaming service is launching tomorrow. For those of you not on iPhone or Apple devices, you can play it on Android devices. There will be more than 150 games available at launch, and then EA Play and many other games will get added in that November-December range. It will be available on Android phones and tablets starting tomorrow. In addition to that, Minecraft Dungeon players, you guys will be the first players to get a offer or to have a reveal of the touch controls. So Minecraft Dungeons not only being available in the service, but will be available to play with controller or via touchscreen. So if you want to go ahead and play with the innovative touchscreen that supposedly plays extremely smooth from reviews, that is available too. And again, guys, you can use any kind of controller for this. It's not limited to Xbox. If you want a PlayStation controller with your side-by-side analog sticks, that is available for xCloud with Microsoft as well. Sony, they are in the news as well this week. Next PS5 showcase is scheduled for Wednesday. That one's going to be at 4 p.m. Eastern time, John. My big question for you, will Sony reveal their price at this showcase?
If they don't, they're stupid. So I'm going to say yes.
If they don't reveal their price, they're stupid. So what are
Yes.
your thoughts for this showcase? Obviously, there's some games out there that they could show. We could see some more footage of games they've already announced. We could get the price. We could get a release or pre-order date. Maybe they give us something Spider-Man related. What are you thinking we see at this showcase?
I will tell you this. This showcase will be a 1,000% failure if we do not get a price point and a release date and a pre-order date. Sony is far enough behind Microsoft and the next generation Xbox console as it is when it comes to just spilling the beans on everything. Sony is taking their sweet time, and it is not good. Sony fanboys out there are freaking out, and they have every right to. Sony is dragging their feet. We talked about it on Thursday's show. Sony was caught off guard with that price point, with Microsoft coming out and talking about how low they're going to offer their next gen console. PlayStation went and Sony went into panic mode. We heard rumors of close to $549 for a diskless option, and like upwards for the. I mean, it was insane, absolutely insane. So it sounds like Sony possibly went back to the drawing board to try to figure out a better price, a better price point to compete with Xbox. And I feel like Sony has to match it. Sony has to have the all digital console match up with the Series S, and the Series X has to match up price point with the PS5 full version with the disc and everything. Because if they don't, I feel like Sony's putting themselves in a really bad position. Again, when you compare the two systems, they're both great systems. They're competing for the same type. Well, not the same type, but they're competing for the same market share of gamers. Now, there are some slight differences based upon what each console focuses on, but really, at the end of the day, you can't go wrong with either console. What you can go wrong with is pricing it too high above your competitor and making that decision for the consumer, forcing them to turn their back on your product. If the digital-only version is $100 more than the Series S, it better have native 4K. It better not have upscaling. It better have all the features that I'm sitting here looking at the Series S go, okay, that's cool, that's nice. I do have an issue with upscaling because history tells me upscaling doesn't really work out all that well. Have native 4K capability. Have 8K capability. Like really blow the Series S out of the water when it comes to its graphic ability that's already built in there. Don't give me this upscaling kind of stuff. That could possibly justify to me the higher price point. If it doesn't, if it's, let's say, on the same line as a Series S and it's a 4K upscale and it's $100 more, there's no point not to get the Series S and save yourself $100.
Okay. Yeah, this is interesting. So we do have some, let's call it inside information. We do know that the price was a lot higher than it will be revealed, whether it's revealed on Wednesday or not. The original price for the discless version was $499 to $549. Those were the two prices they were looking at, either a $50 difference or a $100 difference. We did not get confirmed what the actual price of the full-on PlayStation 5 is, but we believe it was probably $599. Again, much higher than what we saw Xbox release at with $499 and $299 respectively. Now, one of the things to keep in mind, though, which is very different from the Xbox model, PlayStation, their digital edition is the PS5, just without a disc drive. So we're looking at about a $50 cut there. Now, they could cut it $100 here to save even more money for consumers in a sense, or to compete more with the Xbox models. But the actual architecture of the console should be the same as the PS5. It's not 100% confirmed, but we are pretty confident saying the prices will be $399 and $499. I think that's a decent competition rate in a sense. To go to the Series S level, I don't think they could do it with how much hardware is in the PS5. Just because it's so much compared to that Series S in a sense. But again, there's a lot of different features that kind of get played in there. The Series S will not run native 4K, like John said. Hate to tell you guys, but PS5 will not run native 4K either. It's going to upscale both the PS5 digital edition and the regular edition. I believe that's official. I don't know 100% know if that's been official yet, but if not, you guys will hear it soon enough. I think there's a lot of different things to look at here, though. One, the fact that Xbox, people can hate on them all they want, but they're getting Sony to lower these prices. 2, now you're looking at both Xbox and Sony taking losses here. on these consoles. So they're going to be more and more driven to sell these consoles. Sony definitely more than Xbox in the sense that, one, they don't have as big of a funding pool as a Microsoft does currently. So they are losing more upfront in the sense that they can't recover it as easily budget-wise. The other big thing is Microsoft has different ways to get into their ecosystem. They have PC, then they're going to have xCloud on Tuesday. So you can get in via mobile, you can get in via tablet, you can get in via PC or console. Sony, there is one way to enter their ecosystem right now. Yes, there's some little PC stuff going on here and there. There's talk of a lot of their games being moved to PC, and I'm pretty confident they will in 2021. But before that, they got to get these consoles out the door. So Sony is going to be pressed to spend a ton on advertising. They're going to spend a ton on shipping as well. They're actually going to end up air shipping a lot of their consoles to get them on store shelves in time. So they are upping that budget a ton. They're going to be stretched very thin. So expect some very big news to drop. I think they drop it on Wednesday, but they've burned me before. I really thought August was going to be when they showed some of this stuff, and they ended up holding it back. So I don't know if it just wasn't ready, or maybe they felt like they were going to get a negative reaction after Halo Infinite got a negative reaction. So I'm not sure what's going on over there, but I think we get the price. I think we get the release date. I think we get a pre-order date. I'm going to say the pre-order date is early October. I'm going to say October 1st. I'm going to say the release date is going to be mid-November, either November 13th or November 20th. I'm pretty confident in those, so we'll see what happens. I think you'll also get 2 to 3 different surprise game reveals that have not been announced yet. I've talked to John about one of them, which I'm excited for. He is not as excited for, but I think we'll see it shown on Wednesday.
Sorry, Joe. I just can't share your excitement over that game. I'm sorry.
I mean, I'm hoping it's good. I hope it comes to PC too. I think it will, but we'll talk about it a little bit more once we see if it's revealed on Wednesday, I guess. And last but not least, for upcoming news for this week, guys, Halo, they have announced Halo 3 ODST. It will be joining the Master Chief Collection on PC. So if you're one of those PC players that's really enjoyed the Halo Master Chief Collection, now you get the next edition. Halo 4 should be following soon. This one for Halo ODST is dropping on September 22nd. Over to a couple eSport League updates. By the way, I didn't see the results of the last poll. Did you on the pre-order thing?
No, I didn't know. As soon as you talking.
I spent too much talking. Chat, thanks for voting. I'm sure you all agreed that PlayStation needs to reveal their prices. And if you didn't, well, maybe you should think about this twice, because they really do need to. With Xbox pre-orders going on in late September, PlayStation really needs to make the move, in my opinion. I will make sure to check that poll result next time, though.
Yeah, I really need PlayStation to make a move, because, like, Joey, I have no problem admitting this. I'm kind of on the edge. The fact that there is a payment option for the new Xbox console makes it very tempting for me to play my sport games on console again for that online player feel. And just with the power behind the new Xbox generation, PlayStation's really going to have to do something to tempt me not to jump ship from Sony for the first time since the PSN disaster of 2 generations ago. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, I think it'll be very exciting. And I've heard that they've spent a lot of money on a big exclusive deal too. I don't know what that exclusive deal is, but I'm hoping they show that on Wednesday for the sake of Sony and PlayStation. I feel like they need a big banger hit like that. Like, these surprise game reveals are going to be good, but I think they need something else as well to kind of hit that console market again, outside of that third-person action-adventure type of game style. Over to updates for eSport Weekly Leagues. The League of Legends Worlds 2020 Play-In Draw Show is tomorrow morning, September 15th at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. John, this is a very reasonable time for us here in the United States.
I feel like it's too reasonable. I don't like it. Part of me feels like I need to wake up at 3 a.m. to watch this. Part of me might actually miss waking up at 3 a.m. Actually, that's a 100% lie. I don't know if I want to say this on the podcast. I know. Well, my boss is technologically incompetent. Yeah, I'll be taking tomorrow off, so I have no problem watching this at 8 a.m. tomorrow. So simple as that. Let's go.
There you go. There you go. And so, guys, just to clarify, because there has been questions around this before, Worlds has 2 group stages. So there is a main group stage for Worlds, and there's a play-in group stage for Worlds. The draw tomorrow is for the play-in stage. So these are your lower end seeds. Let's say like regional leagues. Like, I think Turkey has some seeds in here. Oceania usually has a team in here. Taiwan usually has a team in here. NA, unfortunately, their third seed goes here.
Team Liquid.
No, South Korea's third seed goes here this year as well, I think. So it's a lot of those teams that are not the top seed of the region, or they're coming as a top seed from a minor region. That is the play and draw show tomorrow. So you're not getting your crazy powered Chinese or Korean teams. You're not getting your top NA or EU teams. This is that lower end draw and show first. Doesn't mean we can't be stoked and excited for it, because it's going to be amazing. And it has changed up a bit because the two Vietnamese teams can no longer travel due to government restrictions. But it is going to be a fun event. And the draw-in and play-in stage is very big. We've seen some teams, Cloud9 being one of them, John, with that, the banner is not in your background anymore. It was in the background.
It's still there.
That Bronco.
It's still there. It's still there.
Hiding behind the Bronco tonight in celebration. Yeah, so Cloud9 is one of those teams that really got their run started in the play-in stage before and was able to take that momentum from some upsets down there right into the main stage or main group stage of Worlds. I think that's something we could see from some of these other teams this year. We have, again, that third-seeded NA team down there once again from the LCS. We also, I believe, have a South Korean team down there. So a lot of powerhouse teams in this play-in stage. From there, once they play their way in and we know who qualifies, then we get the actual group stage draw, the one that tons and tons of people tune in for. But again, if you're interested in this one, September 15th, tomorrow at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. With that, John, let's head into the Overwatch League playoffs and talk about this before we wrap up today's show, because our Washington Justice have made some moves. We predicted almost all of them here on the LvLUp Podcast the previous couple weeks. They continue to pull upsets and upsets. They were the number 12 seed coming in as a Cinderella story. In the bracket setting, we ended up seeing them take down the Dallas Fuel 3-0. Then they lost to the number 2 seeded Shock 3-2 in a very tight match that went to map 5. Then from there, they saw that their backs were against the wall. They dropped into the losers bracket, but that was not enough, John. They sent the Roosters of the Paris Eternal back cock-a-doodle doing. I almost forgot what that sound was. Mondays. Gotta love them, fam. Anyway, they beat the Roosters down 3-0. No Farmers woken up that morning. Then they took on the Valiant with a 3-1 win before going up against the Florida Mayhem and only causing mayhem for Florida 3-0 Washington. Then they set their sights on what we called their biggest challenge yet. Philadelphia Fusion. They played one of the best Sombra Reaper comps in all of Overwatch League, but Washington Justice continued to take down that comp week after week. They took it down in the number 4 seed of Florida Mayhem. They were looking really strong against it the way Decay was playing Zarya, and then they ended up going up against the Fusion and unfortunately got lit up and lost. I mean, it was a competitive match, John. I feel like they played well, but Carpe was playing on a whole nother level. Decay not really playing the role that he did in previous matches. But again, Carpe and the Fusion just came on very hot. They ended up showing why they are the number 1 overall seed here in NA, taking this victory 3-0. But I don't think we can sleep on the Justice. This was a great turnaround for this team. After a rough start to the season, a couple big moves toward the end of the season, Pre coming in as the new GM seemed to really reset some of the mentality there as well. And then they end up making the Cinderella story run, unfortunately ending just shy of making those grand finals in South Korea, but another big win for the organization overall.
Before I share my opinion here, Joe, can you tell me what sound a rooster makes again real quick?
Dang it, I knew you were about to go there.
I am very confused. I feel like that was a rooster that had a slight stutter.
Yeah, I could not remember the sound effect.
So anywho,
I need to go play with like farm toys.
What a day to run out of Kraken rum, you know? Jeez. So, I mean, look, yes, let's toot our own horn. We called pretty much everything for the Washington Justice. We called them taking down Vancouver. They have a winning record against Vancouver. That's just history. Taking down Dallas, we called that as well. Paris, called that as well. We called the LA Valiant, called the Florida Mayhem. We even said that the Washington Justice would make it to the semifinals. And if they played Philadelphia, that was going to be their toughest matchup, and they're probably going to lose. Who'd they go up against, Joey?
I think we actually said we thought they had a good shot of winning.
No.
But that would be their toughest matchup.
For San Francisco, I remember saying last week that if they played San Francisco, I think it would go another 5 games, and they had a good chance to beat San Francisco. If they played Philadelphia, that would be the harder matchup, and that would be
very hard. Yeah.
That would be, at least in my opinion, where they would have been bounced. I did not think it would be a 3-0. I will say that. But I feel like the Justice learned a lot in the second half of the season here with all the changes and especially with this playoff run as an organization. They should be very, very happy. As a fan base, the Justice fan base, Vice and Virtue, and the entire Justice nation, if you will, should be very happy with how this team was able to bounce back and make this run. This is what being a fan is being there for those amazing moments where your team makes history, like this amazing run through the brackets here in the playoffs. And it's awesome. Yeah, it sucks they lost, but you know, that's the beauty of competition is those highs and those lows. Obviously, we like the highs more than the lows, but overall, I think the Justice are easily the Cinderella story of Overwatch this year once again.
Absolutely. Huge run from them, a huge run from a number of these teams, but none of them really matching up to the Justice from that low of a seed to getting as far as they did. That sets us up for San Francisco Shock and Philadelphia Fusion as the 1 and 2 seeds, keeping the bracket as chalky as they could, with the Justice really making a lot of moves there, ending up in the grand final for the NA side. Over to the Asian bracket, John, we called this one well. I believe we called it exactly right. We called Seoul Dynasty making a run as the number 5 seed and Shanghai as the number 1 seed, making it all the way there. That sets us up for that matchup. Seoul on their run of their semi-Cinderella story, a much smaller bracket over here. Coming in as the 5 seed, they took down the number 4 seeded Hangzhou Spark 3-0. Then as the 5 up against the 2 in the Guangzhou Charge, a 3-0 as well, before they fall to Shanghai in a 5-game 3-2 set. That sets them up for a matchup with the New York Excelsior, who they beat 3-0. That moves us on to Shanghai Dragons as the number 1 seed up against the number 5 seeded Seoul Dynasty. Again, moving to that grand final in South Korea. I believe the winner of this match ends up going against the winner of the NA bracket match. John, if we had to choose one right now, Shanghai or Seoul, who are you taking?
I want to take Seoul. They're my season 1 team. I still follow them. But I feel like Shanghai is going to be very tough to overcome. They're a very, very powerful team. They already disposed of Seoul once. I feel like they're in a position to take them down once again. Seoul still hot. You know, lost to the Dragons in the semifinal round. 3-2 was a very close loss. They went down. They took care of business against New York. And now they have a chance at redemption. But I do think Shanghai is going to be a little too much for them. I think it's going to go 5 games. I do think Shanghai is going to take the win.
Yeah, I feel the exact same way on every single point. I would love to see Seoul do it. I think Shanghai's the stronger team. I think they win 3-2.
And just real quick, I noticed on Twitter, because Twitter is a toxic cesspool, New York Excelsior fans, allow me to provide you a reality check real quick. I 100% agree with the staff of the New York Excelsior. You do not know what's going on behind the scenes of that team. And at the same time, I feel like the front office needs to understand fans have an emotional reaction. That's what makes them fans. They are emotionally invested in your team. And yes, they're emotionally invested in your team without that information that you're privy to that doesn't become public. The spat between a fan and a member of the New York Excelsior staff on Twitter, I think, in my humble opinion, to take a phrase out of Joey's book here, should have been avoided. I feel like the front office member should have just not responded. Allow criticism on social media. That's what Twitter is known for, is criticism. Very rarely do you see positive reactions on Twitter when it comes to an emotional reaction to how your team does, especially in a tournament. Just let it go. Respond to the positive stuff and essentially make your fan base aware that if you want to have an interaction with the organization, it needs to be positive. That negativity has no place in this industry. But yes, criticism is allowed. I feel like fans do have a right to be critical, but at the same time, there shouldn't be that open spat calling fans out for being not educated with what's going on behind the scenes, when that purely is behind the scenes and deserves to stay behind the scenes. I don't like seeing that. I wish New York Excelsior in the future that they will avoid those situations and not have to go public with those situations next season. Leave it there.
Why can't we just be nice to each other, ladies and gentlemen? I mean, it's esports, it's gaming too. Like different gaming communities, for example, developers will put out updates and then people are like, well, this is a nice update, but why didn't you include this? Or why didn't I get this skin? Or why didn't this change get made? Like Gears of War is an example. I've been playing it recently. There's a 6 times XP boost. They put out some great updates recently, and fans are just constantly asking for more characters. It's like you guys are getting new characters every single week. How much work do you want these developers to do to put all these characters in? Like, yes, I get it. The character was in a previous game and you feel connected to them. That's all fine and dandy. It's wonderful. But developers cannot come out with new content every single week like they are. Like, it's insane. Like, sometimes you need to just put out a smaller skin or something a little simpler. You can't necessarily put out this giant patch every single week over week. And I feel like that's one thing that a lot of people are whining about in gaming. I mean, you look at the whole pre-order system. I agree. Gamers want their price of consoles. I agree that some back and forth happened with Sony and Microsoft and it got a little excessive. But also, like, look at new phones, for example. Apple releases their new phone price, 2-3 weeks before they end up releasing the actual phones for pre-order? Like, it's one of those things that it's really just gaming is out of that sense. Like, a lot of these other technologies, you get the pre-order price and then it's up for pre-order a couple weeks later. Gaming has really been the only one where we get these console prices way, way ahead of time. So I think people also need to be respectful and adapt. I think it's fine to ask companies for it, but it just gets obnoxious after a while, whether it's pre-order pricing, whether it's asking for constant updates to games. It's just like, come on, guys, just enjoy something for once. Enjoy it, play it. And it comes to the same thing with esports teams. If your team is not doing well, it doesn't necessarily mean a player has to be replaced every single week. Like, I swear, if I see one more thing about a player having to be replaced because they had one bad game, it's like, guys, what about the 5 games before where they carried your team? It's okay. People are going to have bad games. People are going to have a couple bad games. They're going to have to work through problems. They're going to have to continue to grow as a team. Not everything's going to be perfect behind the scenes, and fans do not know what's happening behind the scenes. From an organization perspective, I feel like John said, you have to be professional about it. You can mention there's other things and players are trying new things and different things are being experimented with or whatever you want, but you can't just put your dirty laundry out to dry in a sense. Like, it's something where organizations need to keep some of their details private, but they also need to do a good job of informing fans. Like, hey, we're looking at, I don't know, like telling people when rosters expire or when contracts expire. I think that's one good example. Like, so you don't blindside fans. I think another example is just like being out there and saying, hey guys, we tried our best. Yes, we didn't succeed this year, but we're going to continue to improve our roster. We have great expectations moving forward. We're excited to talk about our future plans coming soon. You're going to get the negativity from both sides here and there. I just think there just needs to be a level of professionalism, both from the esport organization and developer side for gaming, but also from the fan side. Fans demand too much at times. Not every single team can win every single championship. Not every single game will be perfect with every single update. You got to play it. You got to enjoy it. You got to cheer for that team and have fun, even in the ups and downs. I think too much of it is just, I'm going to say privileged in a sense. I think people feel too privileged when it comes to some games in esports nowadays. And I feel like this is one of those checks that they need in life to, hey, you're not going to win every single thing, but you got to be there, rain or shine. You got to keep supporting that team and supporting that developer. Yes, constructive criticism is fine, but make sure it's constructive.
Yeah, to put it, my final exclamation point or my final punctuation on this, if you will. I'm going to bring traditional sports into it. Take the Chicago Cubs. I don't like them. Can't stand them. I hate the organization. That's just me. But that organization did not win a world championship for over 100 years. We are talking generations past of that organization not winning. When the Cubs won in 2016, I have some friends that are diehard Cubs fans, whose parents are diehard Cubs fans, whose grandparents and great-grandparents are diehard Cubs fans. The emotional relief, if you will, that they got from winning that World Series as a fan base, that is what makes a great fan base. Is you have to be there for the ups and downs, because that makes the ups even better. Winning championships is great, but if you win a championship year after year after year, you start to lose the meaning behind that championship. You start to feel entitled to that championship. You start to feel like you have a right to that championship and nobody else can take it from you. I'm sorry. Like, if you're that competitive and you have a dynasty, cool, awesome, go for it. But, at the end of the day, like, people have an emotional connection with teams, and to be there for that roller coaster of ups and downs makes it all worth it. Joey, myself being a Nationals fan, witnessing Game 5 in 2012, and then again in 2017, 2016, 2017, 2018. It feels like just the Nationals constantly losing in the first round, last game of the series. It's heartbreaking, and it was emotionally draining. And then when they won the World Series last year, you were there right next to me, Joey. I was a hot mess. I was an absolute hot mess. But you want to know something? It made those playoff appearances before, like, those are now memories. Those are now like, oh, do you remember that time when this happened, when Kershaw came out of the bullpen in the 9th inning? Like, oh, God, that was terrible. But, hey, 2 years later, we won a World Series. So that's what it's like to be a fan. Cheer your team on. You can be critical of them. You can be constructive. But there's no need to be nasty. There's no need to go on a witch hunt. There's no need to demand players to be changed, management to be changed, especially when you, the fan, don't know what's going on. It's not your place to make those demands. And if the organization wants to go public with it, I don't think they should. But if they choose to, that is their right. That is their prerogative. And then you should be open to the information they do provide you as a fan. Support your team. That's why you're a supporter. That's why you're a fan.
Absolutely. And I mean, just one more point with that, just to bring it back to esports. I mean, just look at Overwatch League, the Shanghai Dragons.
Yes.
This was the worst team in Overwatch League Season 1, and they ended up turning around and doing extremely well in Season 2 and now Season 3. I mean, look at the Washington Justice. They had a rougher season this year, but they end up coming out with this Cinderella playoff run as well. It can happen. Teams can come from a little bit of a worse situation and find their way around. Don't just be a fair weather fan. Be there, rain or shine. Be there supporting your team. It's one of the best parts of esports. And I think you guys, if you're not experiencing it already, this is the time to start finding that support for these teams, even in their tougher times.
This is as long as it's not TSM. All right, Joey.
I think we are good to wrap up, John. Just a reminder, guys, if you're interested in the League of Legends Play-In Draw Show, that is tomorrow morning, September 15th at 8 a.m. That PlayStation Showcase, again, is Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time as well.
Helps if I press the right audio file, Joey. Nation, that will do it for this edition of Level Up Live. Before you go, head on over to patreon.com/OTN. Consider becoming a part of the Overtime Network. In return, you'll get access to exclusive content that nobody else in the world can get unless they are a part of OTN Media. If you haven't already, make sure you follow the show here on Twitch to catch the next episode of Level Up Live this Thursday. If you listen to the show on our podcast feed, leave us a review. The LvLUp Podcast is available on Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes, and Google Play, and we would love to hear from you. In fact, we love to hear from our community so much, we have other ways for you to interact with us and the show. Joey, where else can LvLUp Nation go to interact with us?
Cock-a-doodle-doo, LvLUp Nation. You can head on over to Twitter and find us at LvLUp Live. That is LvLUp Live. In addition to that, you can find us on Twitter and Facebook for our umbrella company at OTN Media, and on Instagram at OTN_media. Last but not least, as John said, we stream regularly on Twitch. This show's next airing will be Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Go ahead and check it out there. We'll be talking League of Legends play-ins. We'll be talking that PlayStation Showcase and much more.
This podcast brought to you by Roosters. Make sure you tune in this Thursday, September 17th, as we cover the latest and greatest in gaming and esports news. Do your ears a favor. Slap that sub or follow button here on Twitch to know when the next episode of Level Up Live is ready for your viewing pleasure. We will catch you on Thursday. Have a great week. And remember, be nice to your fellow gamers online. And as always, level up.